Welcome to our YouTube channel here at Mundelein Church of the Nazarene and the latest episode in our series, Not What You Think. Here we're going through some doctrinal positions. What does it mean to be a Christian? What do we really believe? And it might be a little different than what you think. Today's topic is holiness. Other people call it sanctification. And so every Christian denomination, every belief system in Christianity believes that it's possible. But here's where we may part company. There are some who believe it's only possible after death. After maybe sins have been purged, burnt away in purgatory, or perhaps after removal from this life and this fallen world, it's only possible then. What makes maybe us a little different is we say that it's possible here in this life. Matthew in chapter 5 says, "Be perfect as your heavenly Father is perfect." Well, that sounds like a pretty tall order to be perfect. Who among us can ever be described that way? Well, I think it's maybe we have a little misunderstanding of what that word means. The word that's used here is a word called teleos. That's a Greek word. And it doesn't mean flawless. It doesn't mean perfect as in the absence of any mistake or flaw in any way. I have in my basement, I have a baseball glove. I've had it for, 25 years. It's a Rawlings. I'm too old now. It hurts to throw, and I don't play much anymore. But you know what? Every spring, I still pull it out. I oil the glove up. Maybe my son will come over. We'll play a little bit of catch. And it's a perfect baseball glove. It's so broken in. Some of you will understand what I mean. That when the ball hits it right in the pocket, I don't even have to close my hand around it. It just kind of does it naturally. It's perfect. But if you looked at it, you can tell it's been used. There's some places where it's been scraped up with infield dirt. You can tell that a hand's been in there a lot. It's discolored a little bit. It shows its age. But it's still perfect because it accomplishes what it's created for, and it does it well. In fact, it's a little more perfect teleos now than it was when I bought it brand new. Even though brand new, it didn't even have any visible flaws at all. So when we say perfect, when we say holy, we mean teleos, whole, complete, mature, lacking nothing. We don't mean flawless. In any discussion of holiness, you have to discuss sin a little bit. And part of the problem is, even in our part of the Christian world, we tend to discuss holiness, but we import our terms from other people, and then we end up completely confused. So part of the problem when we discuss this arises from inside our own tradition. When the Bible talks about sin, it doesn't use one singular voice. Let me explain. There's a couple words for sin in the New Testament. The one that's most familiar is called hamartia. Imagine a bullseye. You are maybe shooting a bow and arrow, and there's a bullseye on a big bale of hay. Anything that doesn't hit that bullseye is hamartia. Anything that misses your intended aim is a word that's used for sin. And what we tend to do is we tend to import that definition to everything that we say, and it hopelessly confuses everybody. Now, when some of our friends, like our Southern Baptist friends, talk about sin, that's the word that they're talking about. Sin every day in word, thought, and deed. But there's a couple other words. They're all found in Romans 5, 12 to 21. That section, I'm just reading, there's a couple verses in there that says, sin was in the world before the law was given, but sin is not counted when there's no law. See, that word sin is hamartia, just missing the mark. The next verse says, "Yet death reigned from the time of Adam to Moses, even those whose sins," that's hamartia again, "were not like the parabasis, that's the Greek word, the purposeful sin, the rebellion of Adam. So parabasis in the New Testament means rebellion. And then the other word's called paraptoma. Paraptoma means there's a line in the sand, and I know it's there, and I deliberately step across it anyway. And that's the word that's used in the next verse. But the free gift of grace is not like the trespass. It's not like purposely stepping over a line. For if many died through Adam's purposeful sin, how much more surely have the grace of God and the free gift in the grace of the one man, Jesus Christ, abounded for the many. I'm going to stop talking about Romans 5 now. When we say holiness gives us a certain victory over sin, we're not talking about missing the bullseye. We're talking about deliberately stepping over the line. None of us can live a perfect life where there's no mistakes. I bet everyone here understands that there have been times in our life when we have said something purposefully to someone else, meaning it to be a compliment. Hey, I liked your red dress. What, you didn't like my blue one? No, I didn't mean that at all. I was just trying to give a compliment. It was mistakenly understood. Maybe I didn't say it as well as I should have. That's not what we're talking about. When we talk about holiness, we're talking about what we do deliberately and purposefully. So if the question is, what exactly does holiness do? That's a question I think a lot of people struggle with. Here's some things I bet some of us have heard. What does holiness do? Does it fill us with this emotion where I'm on fire for God? No. Who can live at that level of emotional intensity all the time? It's exhausting. Makes me do these signs and wonders where I heal people and speak in tongues. No. I'm going to say something else. That's perverse. I can just go down the road a little bit. There's a hospital about 4 miles down the road. I'd love to have a power I could just go in and heal people. In fact, if I ever get that power of healing, I'm not going to ever be on a TV show. I'll try to go to a cancer ward of a hospital. I think that's where Jesus would be. Holiness makes me unable to sin anymore. No, certainly not with hamartia, that missing of the bullseye. Absolutely not. I don't even think it makes it impossible for us to do the purposeful stepping over line, paraptoma. But it might make us more unwilling. It might change our goal. It might change our aims in life. It might change what's most important to us. Now we're starting to get somewhere. The other thing I think holiness does, it makes us more sensitive. Makes us more self-aware. But it really makes us more other-aware of the needs and people around me. It makes me more God-aware. Holiness, in short, makes a lot less of me and a lot more of others and a lot more of God. That's hopefully what it does. One more thing. We tend to talk, even in our own circles, when we talk about holiness, about what happens to me. We talk about consecration. We talk about surrender. We talk about turning over my will for God's will. All those are valuable, but we're leaving out one very important point. What does God do? This is not just some commitment for me to be more disciplined or commitment to live a more austere life. That's not holiness at all. That's Pharisaicalism. What does God do? Well, God enables me to be more than I was. He empowers me. He makes me more like Christ. Not all at once, but more and more and more as time goes on. I'm thinking about where most people live. I think primarily holiness is that when we're at the end of our rope, God gives us a little more strength. When we're the single parent or a child is sick and we're at the end of our patience, God gives us a little more grace. When the days are dark, He gives us the strength to make one more step. He makes us more than we would have been otherwise. More whole, more complete, more gracious, more forgiving, more loving. Maybe just more. We have a lot of books out there about self-improvement and self-actualization and making me the best me I can be. Maybe I can be a better me, but holiness is about a lot less of me. And somehow less of me ends up being a lot more in the long run. I hope this helps. I know it's short. I know it's a little bit of what we talk about when we say holiness. Thanks for joining us. Hey, subscribe to us. We put one out every week. Like us, and more importantly, engage us. Ask questions. We'll be happy to come back and answer them. Make a video about your question. We want this to be about you and your understanding and where the rubber meets the road for your life. But thanks for joining us. We're looking forward to seeing you back here again next week.